chair of the Women Film International Committee. We are a supporter of this film festival as well as other festivals around the LA area. Thank you very much for attending the Awareness Film Festival and this film walk. I am your moderator today, and I would like to introduce the filmmakers of some of the films you screened. I would like all of you to introduce yourself, your film, and what was your most favorite thing about doing this film?
Hi, my name is Sue. I'm the cinematographer for Going Mental.
I'm the director.
But I think, I would say my favorite part of doing this project was being able to work with such a visionary director like camera, as well as being able to tell such a very personal story to both of us, as well as in a very welcoming and true way that, I mean, Kara's been working on this idea for a really long time, so it's really incredible to work with such a great friend on a project like this for our senior thesis.
This was our senior thesis film. It was a musical. I didn't embark to do a musical. That's not what I wanted to do. But when I started writing about the songs were what I was my most memorable part of this film, because I got to write about things that I was going through, my friends were going through in a way that I didn't know was possible. So that's what my What's your name? My name is Cameron. I'm the director of Going
Hey, I'm Neil Jackson. I am the writer-director of Off-Ramp. This feels like an AA meeting. My favourite part, I don't know what my favourite part of doing this was. There's so many amazing memories from doing it. I mean, I guess sort of creatively, the most satisfaction I had was completing that first day of filming, because I set myself this challenge of doing a 5.5-page dialogue scene at dusk that I wanted the very last moment of it to wrap when the sun was setting. So that only gave us an hour and a half of light to shoot a 5.5-page scene that was hugely problematic to shoot. I'm sick at the moment. I can't speak up. I'm sorry, sweetheart.
Let's move a little closer. Like, I'm going to move a little closer. So
I'll lean in. How about that?
We'll move in.
I'll lean in.
I'm
sorry.
And I'm old and I can't hear.
Yeah.
We'll be fine.
I'm English. I have a weird accent as well. It doesn't help you. So yeah, creatively, the most satisfaction I had was completing that first day of filming, doing that 5.5-page scene in an hour and a half light, and making sure we had the continuity between cuts. So that was hugely satisfactory.
By the way, for all of you non-filmmakers, shooting a 5.5-page scene in an hour and a half is insane. So that you actually did it, and you're trying to go with the light before it goes dark. That's amazing in itself. Like, you know, if she was your DP, she'd be probably having a nervous breakdown trying to make that deadline.
Well, it meant that one of the actors is here. Where's Jamila? Is she not? One of the actors is here. We rehearsed a lot of a 2-week process to make sure that we got blocking down. And I was there with my DP on the rooftop, blocking the camera points to make sure we were as organised as we could be. But when we finally got that final shot of the guy going back into the building Gerard as the sun dipped down in the final moment, was a huge moment of relief, I think.
I think it would be a win for all of your crew. I mean, kudos, very much so. If I was your producer, I'll be like, you shitting me?
Thankfully, I was my producer, so I was.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Lisa Zumwalt. I'm the producer and director of Crazy. I think there were many satisfying things about making this film. One of them was waking up every day and working on a story that I felt was really important, really challenging, very underreported, and meant a lot to me personally. That was just a great experience. The other thing was just a small thing, but in the editing, just being able to find those moments of resonance with the feeling in the picture or in the music to make the film come alive, because it's a film with a lot of ideas. So to bring out the feeling part of it in other ways, just when you're sitting there by yourself in the cabin going, oh my God, how am I going to do this? That was very satisfying.
Nice. Nice. Looks like you looking for an actor?
No, she's here.
Okay, did you want to, you said something about your actor, said, well, if she's here, you might as well finish your thought.
My thought was, it's my point right now. We'll chat later.
Okay, so for all of you, with this film, why was it important to do it now? Like, why is it feeling, I mean, how long did it take you to do it, but why did you feel like you needed to start expressing the film, the topic, for you? What pushed it forward?
Well, going mental, this was my senior thesis at Chapman University, and actually how this film came about was one of my close friends from another state was posting very negative things on social media about wanting to commit suicide, and I knew he had a lot of depression and stuff that he wasn't dealing with, and it really made me really sad, and I didn't know what to do, and I ended up writing a song about it. The song "I Don't Want to Get Better." It's kind of all about his struggle and how everyone would probably tell him what he needed to do when he just needed to be listened to and have someone there for him. And then I started to kind of go into what was important, like what I had been going through my whole life, that had kept in, and my social anxiety and the generalized anxiety I felt at therapy for my entire life. And I realized that needed a voice too. And I had the way of writing kind of these poetic kind of songs that my friend Stephanie helped me put melodies to, who's a wonderful composer of this film. It became a musical. This is what I need to do. I need to be an advocate for mental health because I've gone through it, my friend is going through it. I have a lot of friends who've gone through things like this, and I want to start like positive dialogues with it.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason to tell it, I mean, there is only now, is kind of the only answer I have for that. Is like, I don't see the point in waiting on any idea that you have. If you have an idea, you need to make it immediately, because then if you don't, you lose the fervor.
Were you able to make it?
Yeah, I mean,
Once you conceived it, like,
yeah, the
what was
moment I
that
had the
time?
idea, I wrote the script. I mean, friends of mine here, I wrote the script. 3 weeks later, we got the cast together. I found funding. We were shooting within 6 weeks.
Okay, that also is amazing. That is also amazing. You know?
Well, it's just it was one of these things that it just felt like I needed to tell it immediately. Otherwise, I wouldn't get the chance to tell it. And it's kind of worked out that way. That if I didn't tell it when I did, I wouldn't have had a time until now, a break, to be able to tell the story again. So, because I knew that I just had this desire, this need to tell this film immediately, it meant that it had this energy collected behind it, both mine and the people that got involved, built this energy behind it and gave it the power to kind of come into fruition quickly.
So when you actually, since it happened so quickly, like you wrote it, you were able to cast and able to shoot it within like 6 weeks is what you said? The people that you cast and the people working on it, did you know them already? Like,
I mean, everybody who was involved.
Right then?
Yeah, everybody who was involved were friends of mine. I mean, the cast were friends of mine. DP's a friend of mine. Everybody came on board and shot it for free. The only people that ended up paying were the sound guys, sound mixers, the color correctioners, the guys that completed the mix. I got a guy who composed music for free. I got a friend of mine to donate a song for free. So it's one of these things. I mean, you don't know what you're going to get until you ask. And I think asking with passion, people get fueled by that passion and want to be on board something that has resonance.
For everything that happened, I would have to say that it just connected so much with people in your life to support something like this.
Yeah, I think so.
That's wonderful for it. Now for you, your story, how did it start? How did we meet? Yes, how did that, like, your team meet? How did the story basically gel and meet? And how did you decide to tell it in such the way that you told it?
Well, I'll try to make it short. I mean, I worked in television for 3 decades, and I got a little frustrated by the stories that weren't being told. So I started looking for other stories. What aren't we talking about? And I found a story about people who were being diagnosed, and I realized that they had a I was curious, like, what is their experience? What did they say about their own experience? But this was not motivated by having a relative or myself being diagnosed. It was just, I was interested. And when I found, like, it doesn't take long before I found out that there's this whole patient point of view. It's a whole view of the world. It's a whole view of the paradigm of mental illness. And I was riveted because it affects all of us. It's not just, it doesn't just affect people who are diagnosed. It affects all the people that are related, the treaters, the families, etc., the lawyers, but it affects the rest of us who are quote-unquote normal, and I use those quotations seriously, because it just has indications for, I mean, the definition of normal is just a very important definition for everybody. So that's how I got into it. I got motivated to make the film. I decided to look at forced treatment because it's a great lens to look at where individual rights conflict with community rights, and there's no right answer. It's all very gray. It's all very tough. I was really lucky to meet. First, I met Rick. Rick was on a mental rights network, and he was furious that Eric was being medicated. And I called him up, and I was like, "Could you be interested?" And he was like, "No, I don't need a film crew in my life." And I was like, "I understand." But then he posted again like a month later, and I said, "Hey, it's me again, just checking in." And he was like, "You know what? If Eric wants to do it, let's do it." And that's how it started. And then once it was off, it was like a horse out of the barn. I mean, the story ran, and we just ran to try to keep up with it.
And what was your first meeting with Eric on?
Well, I first met Eric on the phone. He was in Mendota, which is the state mental institution in Wisconsin. I told him a little bit about me and what I wanted to do. Eric and I hit it off right away. I think that's part of the success. You need to have a great relationship with them. The experience has to be empowering for them to work. And I always trusted Eric, and I think he always trusted me.
And then for the two of you, you guys are classmates.
Yes.
Is this the first project you worked on together?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. At least in this capacity. We've been on sets together in other capacities, but not as like director or DP relationship.
So for this one, how did you decide director-DP relationship? So this is part of your thesis,
Yes.
correct? And then it doesn't sound like you only DP. So how did you go, can you DP? Like, why her? And how did it connect? How did the conversation come about?
So how our thesis kind of works is we go through like a speed dating with our cinematographer options and directors and producers, and pitch our story and hear about them. And I mean, Farrah I've known since I transferred to Chapman, and after talking with everyone, I realized I don't want anyone to tell the story but Farrah. Like Farrah, I think that Farrah will have a lighthearted way. She's a lighthearted, wonderful person, and I love working with her. And my last experience with the cinematographer was they kind of took control of it more. We didn't really listen. We didn't have a good communication relationship, and I realized Farrah and I communicate very well together. And I think that's the most important thing, is that really great communication relationship. I think no matter what kind of relationship, whether it's your cinematographer, a significant other, a friend, or a parent, I think communication is just very important.
So speed dating? You guys?
It was like an event to meet every student person.
Is that normal for your college, or is it something?
Yeah. I mean, the way our school works is that you can you have an emphasis, and so I emphasized in cinematography. So my thesis was to shoot two pieces, like two directors' pieces, and so like we just have to figure out which one.
You know, I think that might be something interesting for Hollywood to take. Because I'm all for using. I have my cinematographers and other people that I love.
Yeah.
But I think it's also good for people to get introduced to somebody and see if you connect. That's a very interesting model. I wonder if that's something people who want to try and meet new people to work with should check out. Definitely. How interesting.
It was really cool. Yeah. I think it's cool in a way. I mean, in a college atmosphere, it's really nice to kind of see everyone's perspective on your idea and also what they could give to it or what they liked or such. I think it'd be interesting in the real world to see people meet and just kind of talk about what they're passionate in film. We all make films for a reason. We all have a passion of why we direct or we film or sound. We have reasons for it. Yeah, might be.
for all of you, what was this project when you were deciding look and feel of it, the point of view you were wanted to take for it? What made you decide that this is how it should be told? Did you try other things before you settled on it? We'll start with you.
I knew that I wanted to be a voyeur in our story. I
Did you write it that way originally?
I wrote it that way originally, so I wanted it to feel voyeuristic. So I knew that we wanted to shoot with a lot of long lenses, so it felt like we were distanced from the subjects and watching them from a distance. And the only times we start to get closer, the only times there are real close-up shots are the hard cut moments, breaking into a new scene are always close-up cuts. And then close-ups on the individuals were only happening at the end when the two of them were actually fighting to get their point across. So I knew that it needed this voyeuristic angle and there would be a separation from audience to subject. So I always knew that was going to be the approach, which would make us feel like we're uncomfortably watching something that is organically happening, because that's what the story is about. It's about delving into people that we see every single day on off-ramps and finding the story behind what brings a person into it. So it's making you feel uncomfortable voyeuristically watching a subject matter that you shouldn't necessarily be watching.
Did you feel, as in your other screenings or other people who already watched it, did that feeling come across to you? Did they have that uncomfortableness or feeling that you wanted to convey?
I guess that's what you'd have to ask these people.
All right.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind, you guys. Like, you're going to have to ask that question and see what your response is. I mean, did it work? And did it feel right for you guys? For how you decided to follow Eric, how did you guys, was it a lot of footage? Was it a lot of did you guys figure out how to follow him or have some preconceived notions, or did you talk about what to follow?
Yeah, we talked a lot about it. The story points were always pretty obvious to me in Eric's story. I felt like I understood them. The hard part was how to tell the story, and I struggled a lot with how much context to put in. Like, I felt like you needed to know the science, you needed to know like something about the public debate, and you needed to hear. So the question was how much. Some people were like, take it all out, it should just be Eric's story. And other people were like, you need it. So, and ultimately, as a filmmaker, you have to make those decisions yourself. It's very hard. So that was the big dilemma for me, was how much context to put in. But I think I was driven to show the patient point of view. I really wanted Eric's story to be told, because it's not told enough, and I wanted to have both sides in there, so you can hear from the doctors too. So to create sort of like a virtual or cinematic conversation that we don't really have in person.
All right, I'm going to open it up to questions. So who has a question for any of the panelists or in general? A comment then, yes.
So, I loved it. I'm just going to address crazy, because as the mother of a son with mental health issues, fortunately I did not go through that, but I'm my son's conservator, and I find having had that to be a private conservator and with a great team around him, he has had a much different trajectory, but a lot of pain in that. And I think LPS is one of. Do you live in California?
No, I'm in New York.
Oh, you live in New York. Well, I don't want to get into too many of the details because it's pretty complicated. But being able to be his private conservator has enabled me to take sort of a compassionate approach. So we have a collaborative system between the two of us of what works for him, and there is no system on, well, that's not true, there is. He's still considered gravely disabled, which he really isn't any longer. But then the problem becomes, as you addressed, if you let go of that and the private conservatorship is gone, then the system can't take control of your loved one, and that is terrifying, because you can end up in an entire cycle, at least in this state, of jail, psychiatric hospital, that you just can't get out of. And that's the problem. The system has them sort of locked in to, okay, you're getting better, now where's the support so you don't end up in control of the state? It's hard.
one of the questions I hope that my film will get people to think about a little bit is, what does it mean to have agency in treatment, you know?
Right.
I mean, and it's just a very open question, because obviously not everybody will be able to do it, or not everybody will be able to do it all the time, and then how do you make policies and laws that support that? Because agency is an important part, if it can be, of recovery.
And I thought you did a really great job of talking about the medications, because he is finally on just one medication right now, and it's changed his life. But his story was very similar to Eric's, that he was on at one point like 8 meds, and he wasn't getting better.
Now, in terms of the agency, I mean, for everybody here, like they're watching the film, and I know it's different for every state, but what in your opinion, because you've been following the story, helping research the story, and you want to get this message across, what should people start to do to learn more about it and be a part of it, you know, outside of watching your film?
That's a really good question. Pay attention to the articles that are being written, especially now in light of the recent mass shootings, about the real relationship between mental illness and violence, because that's really one of the biggest misperceptions that people have, especially people who are diagnosed schizophrenic or violent. They're ticking time bombs and they're going to explode any moment. And this is not the reality. It's not. And this is a very important message to get out, because I think if we weren't afraid of people with mental illness, we might feel a little bit more like, okay, how can we help you? You know, how can we support you? You know, David Oak says in the film, we need to be empowered in our most stressed out times, not disempowered. So I think that's one thing that's important that you can do. And if everybody did that, it'd be awesome.
There's a question in the back, lady.
I just wanted to reiterate that I loved how Lisa illuminated how we stereotype mental illness. I loved that point that came across in the movie, because that is exactly what happens. We just assume because somebody is a killer that they have a mental illness, so it's all about fear. So now we're scared of these people. So that was a brilliant message.
The other thing that I have found, and I don't know if any of you know people with mental health issues, but if somebody, first of all, most people do not have visual hallucinations. It's much more common to have an auditory hallucination. And if you find that you're interested in the voice that person is hearing, as opposed to shaming them for hearing voices, you join with them and you learn something. And I have found that to be very positive with my own son.
Thank you for sharing. Another question, comment from the audience?
I have one more comment, which is I don't know that you were intending to make the film about medications and titrating versus the, assisted outpatient treatment or forced treatment, but I really appreciated that you really could see his struggle with the reality of he wanted to lower his meds and get off them, and what happens when people go cold turkey and what a disaster that is. So there was also that other message running through the film of, and I thought Eric said it very well, that really titrating slowly is really the only way he was going to succeed at this. And I think for people who are struggling with mental health challenges and want to reduce meds, that is really an important piece of information that the medical system doesn't educate people enough about. So I appreciate you doing that.
Now, for you, in terms of your film, what do you want? Is there a way for you to think your film can do a call of action?
I mean, kind of picking up on what the ladies were just saying and what everyone's been saying, I think that's for me one of the beauty of filmmaking is, whether the subject be alienation and sort of suicidal thoughts, or it be mental illness, or it be homelessness. Creating a humanizing dialogue, a perspective that they may not be able to see otherwise, demystifies what is sometimes a very complex subject for people to understand. And I mean, for off-ramp, I mean, we all see homeless people in LA, and I was startled by the fact that a third of all the homeless people that exist in the United States exist in Los Angeles, which is a third, which is a staggeringly huge number. And I have been in the camp previously of not wanting to address homeless people because the fear that there are so many scammers and there's so many people that are just enabled in that system that they want to take money but they're not going to use it in the positive ways. It's going to go towards drugs and everything else like this. But in researching this film, I had so many conversations with so many people that were in terrible situations as a result of circumstances that have been in, choices that have happened to them, choices that they've made that they have been privy to, that they've made badly, but a multitude of situations that have led them to be in the circumstances they don't necessarily want to be in. And overarching, the people that I spoke to want to change their circumstances, but either unable to know how to or unable to. Like I spoke to one guy who had been homeless for 6 months because he lost the house in his divorce, his wife kept the house, he kept his car, and he was living in his car and he was working, and his boss found out that he was living in his car, didn't like that as the image for the company, so fired him. He was unable to keep the payments on his car, and he was unable to get a lawyer to fight for his rights because it's illegal to fire him under those circumstances because he didn't have an address. So he's now living under a bridge for 6 months, trying to find a way to claw his life back, to get back to neutral. And I spoke to so many people in these situations who, by and large, the main thing that they wanted was to feel connected to humanity, to feel they were part of humanity. And the main thing that they feel is that they're alienated and separated from. And I noticed that what I was doing was, by ignoring people, was highlighting and perpetuating the fact that they felt alienated from society. And as a result of researching it and doing the film, my connection to homelessness and homeless people has changed radically, and I now see that I've realized that I have been in my own way 1 degree away from being homeless at various different points in my life. And by 1 degree I mean almost living in my car, which is homeless. So by creating a film, I hope that has given people a slightly different connection to one person, albeit in a fictional narrative. I hope that that has changed the way that people may end up seeing homelessness, and that by looking at people not with pity but with understanding and with empathy, that they themselves could be a degree away from that at any one point in their life, and as a result having sympathy and empathy. That's my overarching hope. A call to action is a bigger thing, and that's on an individualistic level, but just a change of perspective is what I'm achieving.
That's a nice call of action as well. So I hope when everybody sees the film, starts thinking about that as well. So that's great.
So you say the guy tried to get away, he couldn't get away, he didn't have an address?
The lawyer, I spoke to him and he said that he spoke to a lawyer, and the lawyer said he was unable to take his case because he didn't have an address, because the law calls that he didn't have an address, a place of address for him to be able to file.
But that's circumstantial, he's homeless. So
exactly, so there's a loophole that they couldn't fix for him to be able to fight for his own rights.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Sometimes our laws have so many loopholes, it's sad.
yeah, because laws overlap on them, and it's complicated in itself.
Yeah, so he was in this grey area.
So I guess his old house, I guess, in the north, he couldn't use that temporarily, something like that.
No, she would let back.
She didn't have to let back, but just allow to use like an address, some of that. Unless the divorce was that bad. Yeah.
It's closely inspired by these films, what is going on in your life. How is that? How are those for you being addressed? Are you going to do more of these types of things? Are you going to keep the conversation going, or how do you want to keep getting involved in this, or is filmmaking the way you're going to keep getting involved to get the word out?
Definitely. After doing this film, because going through CAP, like, oh, what do I want to be a director, I want to win an Oscar, what is it that I want to do with filmmaking? And after doing this musical, I realized that I really like social impact pieces, and I want to continue creating it, especially with mental health, because it's something that's close to me, since I go through my own anxiety, and I have a lot of close friends, one with a personality disorder that she is just come into contact with in my friends who deals with PTSD, severe PTSD and depression that no one will acknowledge and help them treat. And that's something that I really want to go more into. And I feel with Going Mental, I'm trying to break this stigma that mental health is such an overwhelming thing that we can't talk about. Like, it's really laughable in a way that we are totally keeping to ourselves. We need to be able to talk about it to kind of rationalize it and realize that physical health and mental health are two different balances that we all have to balance, and some of us have to balance it by the other side. I definitely want to continue to make films about mental health or be involved with organizations that have a social impact based message to them, and that's what I've been doing.
Hello, Carmen. Don't you think that because of the stigma it kind of creates a sort of vicious circle of ignorance, that leads to like situations like what just happened like in Vegas, because stuff like that. To this day, people refuse to not talk about it and continue to, I guess, blame victims, so to speak.
I completely agree. I think that there is just a cycle of you come out and think it's too overwhelming, people want you to close off, people want you to do something in a way. We're not allowed to because it's too dramatic, or it's too taboo to talk about, or when a terrible situation happens, then we group everything together, that mental illness and violence are together. That really should be two different fields.
Way more complicated.
Yeah, there's so much complication that goes into it, especially with the mind. We don't know enough about the mind ourselves, and we think that taking care of ourselves in elementary school, how important physical health is. We have to make sure that we run a lap. Well, we also have to make sure that we know how to talk to ourselves, and we know how to acknowledge if we have things going on, that we have someone we can talk to or go to, or a parent that we trust, or someone that we trust that we can open up to and see how to get help if we need it. There's nothing wrong with getting help. There really shouldn't be. That's what I have to do.
I feel like she covered it all, but I guess,
Were you personally then?
like how the film would.
No, personally, is this something you're going to keep like wanting to shoot and be part of, and like maybe work with her again on other people who have these kind of projects?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an identifying Taiwanese American, so I like telling stories for Asian American communities as well as all the issues that they face. So a lot of my projects focus around that. And being able to work with a camera on a mental health film has been really eye-opening to me, because especially like the first film that we watched, it talked about Latinx communities and mental health stigma in their communities, and that was really important to see for me, because that's very strong. Like in Asian American communities, they don't really talk about mental health. So I really do hope to explore these issues more and tell more stories about how to, let people feel that they're okay, because everyone is enough. And like our film was saying, it's like you need to listen to yourself, because you're the one who knows yourself best. And we want to provide and empower people to get to feel like they have agency in their decisions in their lives, especially when you're filming, learning that the doses that you get shouldn't be the ones that you have been sent for. So I really do hope that I can continue making films that do empower people and provide them with the inspiration and aspiration to like find things.
Thank you. So, anybody else?
I was really liked. I don't want to.
Thank you.
I just loved it.
That is one of the reasons this festival really loved when filmmakers give each other feedback about their own films, not just feedback from the attendees. It's really nice that people are sharing and commenting, and the conversation is flowing. And in order to keep the conversation going, can you please let everyone here know the best way to keep following what you're doing, whether it's your film or yourself personally? Let's start with you.
www.crazytofilm.com. And also we're on Facebook if you want to look us up there, also Crazy to Film.
Nice.
I don't have a Facebook page for the film, but pretty much everyone here knows me. So Neil Jackson on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Sure.
Going Mental, we have a Facebook page. It's Going Mental Musical. Facebook page. I'm really bad at social media. I have an Instagram where I post about the next projects that I'm working on, which is Camouflage, my name, which is spelled C-A-M-A-R-A, and then Flage, like camouflage. I blend into my own world. And then I'm embarking on creating a website where I'm going to show the different projects that I'm working on, which is camouflage.com. And also I want to start a blog where I go into different issues that I'm working with, or different issues that I can interview and talk about.
living personality and some things that you want to try your best to do. It'll be a good forum for you, or a vlog.
Thank you so much.
So, yeah. Especially if you get people to follow your journey. Not just recommendations, suggestions.
No, podcasts are great. To follow my work, I just recently made a website, so yay. Farahsu.com, like Farrah Fawcett, Farah, and then SU.com. Check out my work, and if you need photographs, let me know.
So thank you guys for joining us today, to sharing your thoughts and the work that you've done. And I hope you guys continue doing great work, and that we get to see more of you here at this festival or other festivals, or actually just out in the world itself. Thank you for attending. There is a lot of other films showing. Please, check it out. The VR is actually open. Please check it out on there. We have some social causes. One on the Women's March, one on stereotyping, and art and music, and wellness. So there's no line. So you guys are the first ones for it to try out. Also, the red carpet, take pictures, and have fun. Enjoy.
Thank you.